Yeah, because there's a lot of confusion. One, because hello, these bikes are kind of new. The direct to consumer is new. The law has also changed. So to be clear, the trend in more people bicycling is awesome. We love that kids are biking to school. We love that more people are on the roads on their bikes. That e-bikes are allowing people who maybe couldn't or didn't want to ride, makes them able to do so. So we love that. But our big concern, I work for a program called Watch for Me CT. It's a Connecticut DOT sponsored program that's managed through the Connecticut Children's Medical Center. And so our biggest concern is safety. It's really, are people skilled enough, when they're talking about 10, 11, 12-year-olds, do they have on-bike experience before they get on an e-bike? Do they know how to navigate road hazards like sand and grates and sticks and things? Are they using the right helmet? And do people know the law? Do adults know? And in Connecticut, somehow it got passed. Great news, though, for helmet advocates like myself, that all e-bike riders are required to wear a helmet. Now, there's a lot of people that will say, helmets are false security. They don't really help people. They don't. But yeah, maybe if you're against a vehicle that's going 40 or 50 miles per hour, a helmet is not going to be the answer to your survival. But as was mentioned, a lot of crashes are just due to road conditions, lots of things. I mean, we all have friends that we can, talk to that have their story of when they fell off their bike and how at those low speeds, your helmet really makes a difference. So we want people to know that they need to wear a helmet. We want them to know that these bikes that go 20, 30 plus miles per hour, that maybe a standard bike helmet is not enough. Standard bike helmets are usually tested for around, 14 miles per hour, maybe 20. So if you're on a class 2 e-bike that goes 28 miles per hour, you might want to look into, they have a new certification that is in Europe, and off the top of my head, oh no, I got it right here. That's why I have a cheat sheet, NTA 8776. It's an e-bike helmet that goes up to, is tested with efficacy up to 28 miles per hour. Or a motorcycle helmet is another idea, but you want to protect your head. The other thing that we're hearing a lot of is confusion about what the law is. So basically in Connecticut, an e-bike must be 750 watts or less, or 749 and less. Anything that's sold that's above that isn't a e-bike according to Connecticut law. So we know there are bikes being sold that are higher than that. They don't meet the classification. So there are motor-driven cycles. Yep.
So if it's not, does it need to be registered?
Really, October 1st, a certain after.
It's over 750.
Yeah, so
You can go on the road and not on the trail.
not on the trail is what I do know. I am only a bicycle and e-bike expert. I don't know all the rules for dirt bikes, mopeds, faster, things that have engines and no pedaling assist. I don't actually know what the state law is, but you should investigate what the law is as it relates to the machine that you buy. So there's lots of different things out there that people are riding, and they're not all e-bikes just because they have a motor and two wheels. So all e-bikes, 750 watts. The speed is capped at 28. The class 1 and class 2 are 20 miles per hour. Class 3 is 28 miles per hour. I might have messed that up earlier. 1 and 2 are 20 miles per hour. Class 3 is 28 miles per hour. On our trails, class 1 bikes are allowed. Class 2 e-bikes are allowed by local ordinance. Class 3 is prohibited. Children under 16 are prohibited from riding class 3 e-bikes. Yep.
I have a question. So when you say 28, you mean 28 without anybody pedaling?
No, in general, the motor should shut off when it reaches 28.
Shut off. Okay.
Yep.
It doesn't assist pedaling anymore.
It doesn't assist your pedaling
The difference
anymore.
between class 1 and class 2.
Because you can go faster than that without any heat.
The motor will not engaged.
It's almost like there's a governor on it. So if you
feel
try
it's
to go
not.
faster than that, it will fight you to keep you below that.
I've heard that it's easier to rewire them.
It's very easy to, unfortunately. There's a lot of guides. I hate to say this, you're trying to warn people, but you're also teaching people that they can go to YouTube and figure out how to override that. What that does is it makes it not an e-bike by Connecticut law anymore, but it doesn't mean that you can't ride it. I mean, it's not prohibited by law. It's just not, you can't be on trails, and it's not an e-bike, so it doesn't pertain to the e-bike laws.
If we could say everything over 750, it's gotta be considered a motorcycle, and motorcycle laws shall apply.
Yeah, I
It
think,
has to be more powerful than that.
yeah, so
think beginning October 1st is
3,700 watts is a motor-driven cycle. So anything that's 749 or above is most likely categorized as a motor-driven cycle and not considered e-bikes. And anytime you modify the e-bike in any way, it's no longer an e-bike. So if you modify that speed, you do anything to it, you do any kind of altering the drive system software using an app, making other modifications. There are some questions about the labeling. The labeling with the 9-point font requirement, that's really a point of sale requirement. Once you own the bike and you get it out, if you alter it, you don't have to put a new label on. You do have to let people know and have it labeled if you resell it. But that's something that came up is, do you have to, if you bought an e-bike now in October, is it going to be illegal because it doesn't have a label on it? No, that's not the case. It's just at the point, it says protect consumers and keep consumers aware of what they're buying. So there's a lot of laws around not mislabeling. If you have a class 3, you cannot say it's a class 1, again, at the point of sale. So there's going to be a lot of stuff for sellers that as a result of the October 1st law.
The October 1st law does change things a little bit. There are some holes in the law. It's not perfect, and that's one of the things we'll be working on next legislative session. So that registration, you don't have to register it under 750, or actually under 749, but over 37 or 3,700 you do.
Yeah.
So there's that gap between
Yes,
750 and 3,700. What do you do with them?
they are. Yes, and I
some
don't
of those don't
know.
even have pedals.
Yeah.
It's an electric motorcycle.
Right. So there's all different things that fall in between there. They're not e-bikes though, so we got to be just clear on that. They're not e-bikes. They're not allowed on multi-use trails.
So the difference between class 1 and class 2, I don't know if any, it's same power. One is pedal assist only, class 1. Class 2 has a throttle, so you don't have to pedal at all.
Yeah. So one other thing I want to mention is, where are we getting this idea that injuries are up? Well, one, we've talked about the deaths, the bicycle deaths. So in Connecticut, we're at 7 deaths so far. The DOT reports 6. There's a 7th because the DOT works with the FARS system. It's a national database, and they don't count any deaths that occur 30 days from the crash. We do. I'm also waiting on information from the medical examiner's office to get any bicycle death numbers that aren't related to vehicles, because the only thing that shows up in the crash database are collisions with vehicles. So I want, so it will not, if they go off the embankment like the gentleman down in West Haven or wherever he was, that will not count in the crash database, but we will have that information. The other thing is injuries. So there is no centralized database for injuries, at least that's real time. We gather hospital data at the conclusion of every year. It takes a while to get that, but I can tell you from Connecticut children's data alone, January to June in 2024, there were 8 injuries treated, e-bike injuries treated. That same time period, January to June 25, there were 39. So then July hasn't hit yet. We haven't gotten the July numbers, but I get those notifications on my phone, and I'll tell you every other day that thing is going off with another child that's in the ER. So our concern really is kids, making sure that they have the skills they need to ride the bike, and then to ride a fast bike, which is what e-bikes allow them to do, is go a little bit faster in some circumstances than they might not have been able to. So are they developmentally ready? Do they know the rules of the road? Do they know how to handle their bike? Kids are still developing. They are not good at judging how far away traffic is. They're not good at assessing danger. So parents should be a little bit more discerning. Not to say they shouldn't ever let their kids ride one, because I love the kids are riding to school, however they're getting there. But we want to make sure that we're addressing these safety issues with kids.
So you can address it, and Officer Ball, you can address it too. Beyond e-bikes, I mean, e-bikes have been here for a while, and these numbers going up. with the injuries and the deaths?
I think
not
it's
just
available.
e-bikes,
I think well, it's not just e-bikes. It's all bikes. And so the last time we saw this many bicyclist deaths in one year was 2016. There were 7 bicyclist deaths in 20. Usually we average, the 5-year average is 2 a year. So we're at 7. We usually are at 2. Sometimes we've had 5. 2016 we had 7. So we're not astronomically out of the woods, but it is quite a big increase. Hopefully next year we see it go back down, but who knows? These spikes do happen, so it could go back down. But I think it might come down to just availability. You know, like you said, the direct to seller, we have a lot of websites that are really easy to buy things off of. But there's a danger when they're not regulated. They don't have that UL certification. They don't have the proper labeling. You know, we're seeing this across the board with counterfeit car seats, with all kinds of things that you can buy online from other countries that don't have the same regulatory standards that the United States has. Yep.
Just a couple of comments. I'm the chief of pediatric neurosurgery at Connecticut Children's. I'm
Wow.
the associate director of trauma, and I'm the central committee for trauma for the American College of Surgeons.
Thank
Oh,
for
you
coming.
can speak about
Yeah,
injury.
do
You want to come take the wheel?
Speak into the microphone. Would you-
Yes, please.
I can. I'm also a Simsbury resident. My daughter
Thanks for
went to school
coming.
here. Yeah, no problem.
Say your name for us.
Jonathan Martin. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Yeah, no problem. I mean, I think this is a really fantastic event to get so many different disciplines together: concerned citizens, law enforcement, folks from the legislature, because it's the kind of solution that we need to a problem like this. So the data that Amy is representing is not an aberration that we're seeing in Connecticut. This is a national problem. Talking to our colleagues in trauma centers around the country, they're seeing it. You know, I can personalize this and tell you, you know, the one fatality that's in the database was a patient of mine. It was a really severe injury. He died about 2 weeks after his injury, and it was, you can imagine, horrible for his family. I can also tell you, because we see these injuries all the time in the emergency room, I get to have, you know, conversations with families, if not every day, certainly every week. You know, not a whole lot different than my own family. Having a conversation with my wife when my daughters were younger, riding around in the driveway, right? The perception is, and being a guy who grew up not wearing a helmet until I was probably a teenager, the perception is if you're riding in your driveway, it's safe. I mean, what could happen? Well, I've done plenty of operations on children who fell on their driveway. So I can assure you, if you're on a bike, you're at risk. You can believe that, not believe it. It's absolutely true. Those risks may not be high in terms of, you know, total magnitude, but the severity of the injuries can be really significant. And there's no question that a helmet makes a difference. I have a young man, he'll be discharged probably tomorrow. Had he not been wearing a helmet, I mean, he certainly would be dead. You should see, you know, sort of the condition of his helmet, and he's going to walk out of the hospital. So I think just making sure that parents understand, that we all understand as citizens, that, you know, helmets make a difference, and the difference for any one of us is a brief hospitalization or no hospitalization versus potentially going home in a box. Those are real stories. These are not fabricated. They impact families. They impact communities when they happen. From the perspective of solutions, right? That's you know, identifying a problem, trying to, you know, sort of quantify it, and look for solutions that then are portable and implementable across the country. That's really the job of an injury prevention center. Groups like the American College of Surgeons are working hard. The Regents actually came out with a statement just in June, identifying this as a problem, but we're handicapped because a lot of the data it's hard to come by. When someone comes in with an injury, there's a lot of ways these things can be categorized, and there really aren't. There are these codes that we track injuries with called ICD-10 codes. They don't exist for a lot of these injuries right now. So I think, you know, there are things that we need to do at a hospital level in terms of, you know, sort of quantifying these injuries. Being able to come out to you and personalize these stories. I think, you know, when we can make people understand the consequences of it, those are the things that empower citizens, to motivate legislators, to work with law enforcement, you know, to make sure that the laws are enforced, and to do that equitably. So I think really important effort, and yeah, I think I've said enough other than to say thank you very, very much for running this tonight. I think it's super important, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If there's anybody, we can talk to in the future, the grand rounds or whatever, just let us know.
I
You
think
know,
it's
'cause-
definitely a topic that's right for grand rounds. I wouldn't be a bit surprised. Kevin Borup, who runs the Injury Prevention Center, I know we've had a lot of ongoing.
Can you write down your information here?
Yeah, I'd be happy
Yeah,
to.
there you go.
Yeah,
Thanks.
So yes, Kevin has instituted the help of a researcher who's actually going case by case for every bicycle crash that's come into Connecticut Children's, and they're doing a deep dive into that data, and they're everything for like helmet or no helmet, e-bike, no e-bike. We don't know when those results will be available, but when they are, it will be a great a show of data to really tell us the picture of what's happening and what ages are being affected, what situations are they in? Are they on road? Are they off road? Are they on trails? So we're excited to get that information. And the other thing that his comments reminded me of is that actually, according to Connecticut law, helmets are required for kids 16 and under. Actually, it's going to change to 18 and under on October 1st. For not just bikes, we're not just worried about bikes. It's scooters, skateboards, rollerblades, and that's a result of Connor's law. And Connor was a child down the Connecticut shoreline who was on his skateboard and fell and hit his head and died, and his mom made it her mission to add other wheels to the helmet law. So anytime you're out there, have fun, but be safe. That's really all we want. We want you to go home at the end of the day. So.
And our friend Steve Mitchell, who's local to this area, many of you know him, Mitchell Auto Group, he was the one that spearheaded the helmet law going up this year. He just couldn't believe it was just 15, so brought it up, then that got passed as part of this October 1st change. Officer Ball, do you want to start your comments and let us know how these things can change on the street, out there on the mean streets of Simsbury?
So again, now that I have the microphone again, I'm Officer Jamie Ball. I'm with the Simsbury Police Department. I've been a police officer for over 20 years now. I've been an EMT for almost 30 years, volunteered both in Simsbury Ambulance, Granby Ambulance over the years. So I have a lot of experience, when it comes to this stuff. Plus, I'm an avid bike rider myself. I love mountain biking. But again, I think the thing is, a lot of people ask, the police department, what are you guys doing to, enforce, the laws to keep people safe? What is it that, our stance is on it? And honestly, a lot of things people don't realize is it's not super easy, for us to, enforce, the laws. We can when it comes to the roadway because, bicyclists are supposed to follow the same rules as motor vehicles. So if we see a bicyclist, going through, a stop sign, that's something that we can actually pull the bicyclist over and we can cite them for that and then remind them of the safety things. And then on the flip side of it too, if we see a motorist that isn't yielding to pedestrians, that are properly crossing in crosswalks and things like that, or not following the 3-foot rule of going around somebody, we can also, have a conversation with a motorist, and explain to them the safety issues as well. So we can do those things. When it comes onto the trails, a lot of people say, hey, like, there are these e-bikes out there, or even let's just take e-bikes out of it, just people in general, are going super fast. The speed limits that you see posted on these trails, they're recommendations, they're collaborations from, the different, biking councils in the area and the region on what they feel is a safe speed to be at. But unfortunately, those are outside our realm in law enforcement that we can enforce. I can't run radar on a bike trail. I can't pull somebody over. If we want to talk and just jump into e-bikes again too, the different classes, we, the Constitution protects from, illegal search and seizures. And I can't just randomly stop somebody, even if I see a teenager going fast on a bike, I can't stop them legally and say, hey, show me, what classification your bike is. It would be illegal. We would be, sued for that. So you say that, okay, I've just explained to you all the things that we can't do, but what are the things that we can do, as law enforcement? So what we can do is we are very visible in our communities, right? We wear uniforms, we drive cars that stick out. So we're so visible and we are implanted deeply into our community and safety. That's the root of everything. We can help with education pieces. So whether that is, stopping a bicyclist, having a conversation with them, with their parents, social media, putting things together and putting it out, attending functions like this and meetings like this to show that, hey, we think this is important as well. And being a part of that and a way to create a solution to the problems. So when we talk about helmets, for example, I think everybody probably in this room is all in agreement that helmets are super important. But not only are helmets important, but having a properly fit helmet is important. So making sure that when we talk to parents and talking to kids that, hey, listen, not only do you have a helmet, one, yes or no, or two, is it fit properly? And then we can say, hey, go online and look at how you fit a helmet. Go to your local bike shop, and ask them whether, it doesn't matter what community you're in. And then, no offense, I'm not throwing a plug out to the bike seller. I'm throwing out to bike shops in general, saying, hey, listen, like, go ask somebody who's an expert on, helmet fitting and find out, what's the proper fit. A lot of things that sometimes people don't realize is there is a program that we offer where a lot of local businesses, even Simsbury Social Services, they contribute some funding and some grant money towards purchasing of helmets. We've bought many helmets, with the help of, Walter, where we have, a little stockpile at the police department. So if somebody can't afford to purchase a properly fitting helmet for their child, they can absolutely come by. They can contact me. And thank you, sir, for coming. They can contact us and we actually can hand out, these helmets. So, if you can't afford one, then please let me know, because we want to see every child riding with a helmet. We have done some safety initiative programs for several years in a row where the local businesses get together and support this initiative where we call, giving out tickets for helmets. And people ask me, okay, what is that? So the social services and some of the local businesses, they've actually given us money to purchase ice cream, tickets through, local vendors, throughout the town. So we distribute those to our officers, usually at the beginning of the summer. And we tell them, hey, if you go out, all right, and it's kind of like the opposite thing. But if we see that, a couple kids that are riding and they're wearing helmets, or they're following the rules of the bike trail, or we see them on the road following rules of it, we'll make, a consensual contact with them. We're not going to chase them down or anything, but if we see them, we'll stop. We like to pull up, and get out of the car, and we like to initiate that contact. Hey, I see you're wearing a helmet. That's fantastic. Because you're wearing a helmet and you're being safe, here's an ice cream ticket. And then here you can go to, whether it's Meadow Farm or one of the local businesses that sell ice cream that are part of this program, and they can actually cash that in, and it's an incentive for them to make sure, that they're being safe and wearing a helmet. I did try to pitch that if somebody stops for a stop sign, if we could pull them over and give them a ticket for stopping, and the chief didn't go for that.
It's pretty good we all came here tonight.
Yeah, so we have that program. 1 year, a couple of the local ice cream shops had kind of closed down. So we're like, oh, what are we going to do with this to make it more affordable or easier to do that program? So we actually worked with Fitzgerald's, and they did cupcakes. So same thing. We would see, a child that was following the rules of the road, and wearing a helmet. We would stop them and we'd say, hey, great job. And, here, when you're riding, go on over to the local business and you can pick up a free cupcake, on that. And it's a reinforcement, that positive reinforcement of your following and doing all the safety things. So those are the few things that we do. We participate, a couple times a year when the schools have the kids riding to school for the bike walk to ride to school events. We have several police officers that attend that to show our presence. We usually will either ride with the kids. I've done that. I've ridden with the kids several times to school. They get a kick out of that. They love it. And it also is promoting education for them to have the rules of the road and how to use it. Because we want kids and everybody to be outside and using these trails and using these things. We want them to use it, safely and appropriately. Like I said, we'll put things out on social media. I'm actually creating one now for the new public act that's going into effect on October 1st. So Simsbury will be getting on board with that, putting out a little reminder to everybody. But those are the things that we're doing to support it. With me being the community services officer, I'm also one of the bike officers in town. We like to show our presence, so we get out and we'll ride on the trails, especially when the weather is nice and we know people are out. So you'll see a visible presence of us, and sometimes just our presence alone, again, is going to help deter unwanted, unacceptable behaviors on the trails. Let people know that they can feel safe because we are patrolling the trails. So that's always a good thing. And then also it allows us to be outside of our police cars with rolled up windows and the air conditioning on, and allows people to stop and initiate conversations with us. That's what we want. We want you to tell us, hey, these are our concerns. Hey, I saw this going on. I have a concern with that. So that way we can address them and have a conversation with you face to face. And that's fantastic. I love it when people do that because it lets us know what the concerns are in the community, just like this forum here is today. So, I don't know if anybody else wants to talk, but I'm definitely open to questions.
Yeah,
From what
you said in our conversation when I talked to you a week or so ago. If you see someone on the trail going 30 miles an hour, you can't cite them at all? I mean, you can't give them a ticket or anything?
No, because there's really no enforceable speed limits that are on the roadway, on the trails, I should say, as far as it goes. Because it's not like on a actual like roadway where we can enforce the same rules like with a vehicle, right? So again, we can try and have a consensual encounter. If somebody wants to stop, we can kind of roll up next to them, if they stop somewhere, and we can say, hey, I happen to notice, that behavior might be a little bit fast, might be too quick, remind them of, some safety things depending on where they at. So yeah, that's kind of like it's a difficult, area for us. Now, with that said, all right, if somebody is operating very recklessly, there are some laws that, we can dabble into. If somebody, is obviously, they're really like weaving in and out and doing things, just like if somebody were to try and take, a dirt bike onto the trail, or somebody were to try to drive their car onto the trail, or things like that, we can take enforcement action on things that are, grossly unsafe, and we have some statutes that Connecticut allows us to
But
to
with the change
handle
in
that.
law coming up on October 1st, 17-year-olds will have to wear a helmet on a bike. If you see someone you know is maybe 16 or 17 somehow,
Yep.
you can't cite them for that.
And again, how do I know? You've seen, you see some 13-year-olds that, look like they're 6, and you see some 13-year-olds that, they look like they're 21. So again, that's one of those situations as well where we can't just randomly pick people off, by, what they look like, right? So that's something we can't engage in, and again, but it's always those things of putting those reminders out, educating. I'm a big fan of educating, explaining to people, being role models ourselves, right? So if we're making sure, like I go out with my son, and we go out riding the bike, I'm making sure I'm putting on my helmet, and he sees me doing that. It's just like when you get in the car and you buckle up that seatbelt too, right? You're showing that you're a role model for this stuff, and that they're going to follow suit to that. So.
Go ahead, Stu.
Did I hear right that after October, all e-bike riders are supposed to have a helmet on?
Yes, that is correct.
So you won't have to worry about age then.
Yes, except for the fact that we still run into multi-use trails when they're not on a designated public roadway. That gets a little dicey too, as far as what law enforcement are allowed to do, as far as can we pull these people over, can we cite them, well, are we on private property, are we on public property, and those are all things that we're going to navigate. And as you explained, there are some some holes, right? And it's like anything, as technology increases and new laws are established, there's always going to be that area of, well, what if this, what if that? And those are things that we're going to navigate and we're going to tighten up over the next few years, hopefully. Yes?
I have seen officers riding on the trails, which is great.
Yep.
How often, are they just on weekends or are there just certain times that they're there? I haven't seen them very often.
Yes. So the question that was asked is, how often are we getting out onto the trails? And I will tell you it will vary, and it depends on lots of different situations. Honestly, staffing, right? So, this summer our staffing has been down a little bit, between different things. We either be, people coming, going, if we have people that are out on vacation or sick time, things like that, may reduce the amount of officers and their presence that are seen. We obviously encourage our officers to get out there when they're available, but we have to cover, the patrol and the road first. And then, like I said, if we have an extra officer that's working who's bike certified, because that's the other thing too, is people say, oh, well, you have, 40 police officers. Right, but they have to go through an extensive biking program to be certified on the bicycle. So we have about a handful of officers that are certified on that. So we also have to make sure that they're working as well. So there are times where, there's some shifts that I've gone out and I've been out for 3-4 hours, and riding all over town. And then there's other times where, unfortunately it goes, for a week or two before I can get out onto the trail. So it kind of varies. There's not really any set specific times, usually during the day and then in the early evening hours when we know that the trail is being most frequented. That's when we like to get out there.
And the second question.
Sure.
Are there some bikes or some two-wheeled vehicles that are so obviously not 1, 2, or 3
Mhm.
types of e-bikes, that you know.
That's
Yeah.
a good question. I mean, the ones that don't have pedals that move.
Yeah,
Look like a
and
dirt bike, but
and that's where these the new laws are coming into effect as well. Is that the ones that don't have the pedals, but they're over their 750 cc's, like or 750 watts. I'm sorry, and that's the thing is these laws are so crazy. You got cc's, you have watts, you have hybrid bikes, gasoline powered, electric powered, and it all is very convoluted and it's hard to navigate. But to answer your question, if they're over that 750 watts and they don't have pedals on them, the state is starting to consider them now to be more like a motor-driven, cycle-driven type of unit, and that you are required to have a driver's license for that. Okay. And then when you get into certain heights of the seats, and then you get into switching over to gas models with different cc's, that's where you get into the registration stuff. And I'm not going to throw out that specific number to you because it is kind of convoluted, and I don't want to throw out a number that would be incorrect. But you are on the right track of absolutely. There's
One of my questions is,
pocket bikes and
there are some that you can tell are not
Yep.
supposed to be out there on the trail, or not supposed to be out without registration or whatever. Isn't in some cases sufficiently obvious that you have the power to stop them?
yeah. Yes, and again, it gets a little difficult when they're on the trails like that, but it's like anything. If we see, somebody that is, riding one of these, that could be considered, a pocket bike, a motorcycle, a moped, by gasoline powered. If it's pretty obvious, just like same thing, somebody drives their car up onto the bike trail and starts, that's pretty obvious, then we can do that. But there's some different statutes that go into that. It's not so much like the infraction statutes we get into looking at, like reckless driving, what time of day is it, are there other people on the trails that are having to jump out of the way? So those are different things that we have to look at. Yeah, and we have to look at those things and do that. And anybody is welcome to come to the police department if they, observe something like that. They can come in, they can file a report, and we will investigate it. And if we can do that,
Okay.
so yeah.
So now, a moped
Clifton,
is
sit.
49 cc's and under. Is there a watt limit that makes it stop being a bicycle and starts being a motorized vehicle?
Well, right now they're saying that anything over 750 watts, it gets into that motor-driven cycle, realm. But again, then you start to have to break that down a little bit more into seat height and things like that. So it can get, it does get convoluted. It's all there, right? But we just have to sit through and just read it through line by line. But
I mean, I ride a motocross motorcycle, and some of these construct consumer, it's a condensed motocross motorcycle.
Absolutely.
yeah,
And we've had the kids come in here trying to fix one. We came in. She said, "Can you fix this?" We'd never heard of the brand before. And the front fork, which is supposed to be like that, was like this. It was dirt embedded. Obviously been in a really bad crash. She was 13 years old. We can't fix that. We wouldn't fix that. I mean, it's
No,
just,
you're liable.
yeah, it's a motorcycle. But
yes, sir.
One of the things I've never seen the regulations that do exist posted on trails. I think that's one of our first things we can accomplish is post the regulations. And, every few miles on the trail, big sign, what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic idea, and we're already on top of that. So things don't move super fast, but that is one thing that that has been brought up is like, well, hey, where are the rules? And there are certain spots along the along the trails that do have general posting of the rules and things like that. Then as laws change, we have to update them. But actually, I have been talking with the director of Parks and Recs, from the town of Simsbury. And he's been working directly with, the other directors from the surrounding communities about coming up with some signage. And that is one thing that we've looked at. There, is some funding available for some signage on there to remind people of the rules, and again, what the, suggested speed limits should be there. Again, we can't really enforce it per se, but we can educate people on it. But what the thing is we don't want Simsbury to put up our own set of signs. And then we don't want, Farmington to have their own set and Avon. We want to keep it so we're all together in the valley, right? So that way when you go from point A to point B, all the signage, if we decide to pick, colors or symbols or all of those things, the shape of the signs, we want it all to be continuous from one town to the other. So again, nothing happens overnight, but yes, we're already working on that. And I know, like I said, our Parks and Recs department is in contact. They have meetings with others.
I think if the state or state organization needs to come up with a standard sign that counts within order.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. Some type of standardization, and that's why on the rules of the road we have that. We have a whole big thick manual that we follow. So that way, if a stop sign in, Connecticut is, a red colored, octagon, the same as if you go to California, right? So we all want it to be the same. Yeah. So we're totally in agreement with that. That signage is definitely key, and that's part of that education piece.
You can go on AI and you'll find a lot of different signs in different parts of the country.
Oh, I bet. Absolutely. So anybody else any other questions for me?
I'll just speak up for the town of Farmington.
Okay.
Our most recent town newsletter had a full-page educational. It was all about bicycles and all about the classifications, so that every citizen of Farmington that's reading their newsletter, sees that and is educated.
Is
So
that a
can
town
pass that
newspaper?
along. Yes, the newsletter, the Farmington Town
Yeah,
newsletter.
it's probably online.
Yeah,
It's posted online by now.
We can do that.
And I don't know how many people are aware, but like I said, we're a part of. There's a Simsbury bicycle pedestrian, community group, and they're an advisory group, and so that's open to everybody, in the public. They can join. There's quarterly Zoom meetings. We actually used to meet in person, but then after COVID, it went to Zoom, and I think everybody enjoyed that, right? So, so there's those where we talk about some of these same topics and things like that, and then they take the information that they gather, and they're an advisory committee to, the Board of Selectmen, and they can report back and say, hey, these are the concerns that are going on in our current community. These are some things that we're seeing. Also, with May being Bike Safety Month, they try and organize, a couple different events where we promote, bicycling and, walking and things like that and getting outside. So anybody, who's here in this room or anybody hears this, on, media where it's posted, we ask you to please join those meetings and, be a voice and speak up. And, we need volunteers for stuff, raise your hand because that's all going to help the mission.
Bike Walk Connecticut, which is sort of an advisory group that's really ramping up their efforts here in Connecticut. Steve Mitchell's on that board as well. We're going to be looking at writing some legislation for the next session. And really, I've talked to people from Rhode Island state and state legislature, and I was riding an e-bike there on the Bristol Bike Path a few weeks ago. And at every trailhead, at every crossing, there was a sign that said no, absolutely no Class 3 allowed. So there's some signage there, but ideally that would be a statewide signage issue, which I think we've got what we call a horrible opportunity going to this legislative session to get some safety things passed.
I would invite anybody there's a monthly Bike Ped Advisory Board meeting, which is open to anybody that wants to watch it.
Oh, that's great.
And,
Where do they find that online?
and it's on Zoom, right?
Okay.
And most of our subject is bike and pedestrian safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, e-bikes have come up.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions for Officer Ball, Amy, me, Walter? It's your last chance. No, it's not really. We're gonna. What I'd really like to do is before October 1st comes along, we want to really get what these laws actually are going to be, and there's some sheets here with information. You're free to take them, but we need to put out something where we all know what this thing is. It's coming October 1st because I've read it. It's like, and I've called the state capitol. It's like, well, it's really weird. It's just it's. I've written some human trafficking language, anti-human trafficking. That's like what I do. And it's a law that has to get better every year. It doesn't all happen at once. And this is one of those. You just hope nobody gets hurt until the law gets as best it can be. So that's what we'll do. Anyone else? Oh, yes.
I guess this conversation is mostly about the trails, which I prefer because even what we're talking about, danger is increasing on the trails. It's still a safer option than the roads to me. But sometimes we want to use the roads to get to the trails. And I live in town, I live on West Mountain Road, and
Monday and then Wednesday through Saturday. Yeah. But please take some pizza. We got a lot of it. And this will be on community television soon and up online as well. But thank you.
Yeah, and in response to what you're talking about with, it's just the share the road thing, right? So the library hosts a couple events. We've gone to a couple different things for the biking community where we try and as law enforcement to go, and we try to educate both sides of it, right? So we try and tell like bicyclists, hey, like I said, don't wear earbuds, and make sure you're wearing high visibility clothing, make sure you're wearing a helmet, make sure you have a bike that's in good working condition. And a lot of that too, if I do like a bike rodeo where I attend it, where like the Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts are putting it on, I talk to the kids about, doing like a pre-trip on your bike and making sure it's safe and all of these things, right? So we do that, and then on the same token, we also flip it too, and we talk to motorists, and tell them things that they can do, make sure that they're, parking the phone and not texting and driving and paying attention and letting them know, hey, in Simsbury, there are roads that even during the daytime that could be shaded and it can be hard to see somebody. So we try to really usually it gets into engaging because you always have the bicyclists are against them, it's all the motorists, and then the motorists are all against the bicyclists. And it creates a lot of sometimes people get really tense. I've had people yell at me at some of these things before.
Facebook conversations too.
Yeah, and then the people that go on social media and just blast out, their feelings. But realistically, it's coming together on both sides. That if we're both educated, hopefully we can meet in the middle, and then and we can both be role models for each other. And that's what we really at the police department try and promote. It sounds cliche, but on the back of all of our cruisers in town, it's in partnership with our community. But it's so true, that we do. We try to partner in respect that people want to use the roads as bicyclists, but yet people also, people have that theory of roads are for cars, and we also want to have that mentality of breaking out that no, we need to share these spaces together. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Something you mentioned about stopping people, either for a positive situation, and this goes back, I don't know, maybe 40 years. And there was some police department east of the river had a stack of inexpensive vests, and when they if they come across somebody either walking or bicycling on the side of the road in black clothes, they'd stop, try to educate them, and give them a vest. Do you run across that very much, where people are inappropriately dressed riding at night?
We do sometimes, yeah, absolutely, and honestly, yes, if it's late at night and it's dark and I see a bicyclist that's riding or even a pedestrian walking, 100% our officers are stopping and engaging with that person, and saying, hey, listen, we can't see you, you're gonna get hit by a car, and and we facilitate if they need a ride somewhere, or asking them to please move off the road, or hey, listen, here are some ideas to keep you more visible. Hey, I'm walking to and from work and I have no choice, I have to walk at this time. And we encourage them, hey, listen, get a vest, get something like that. And if truly, and that's what's cool about Simsbury, it really is. If something like when I said talk about our helmet program that we have for kids, if somebody is really hard up on their luck and they just can't afford proper safety equipment, everybody comes together and help each other out, and we'll try and figure out a way. We've had officers pay for things out of their own pocket to help people with different stuff. So
South Windsor and our bike program over there, I lived there until 5 years ago, and everybody gets a helmet as part of the bike, the fourth grade bike program.
Yep, absolutely.
For over 40 years, SCM has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education, and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events.
They're actively preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government come together.